luck to you to continue with that. That's fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let us move on to our final presentation on making census data open, accessible, and useful for real people. And just to remind you again that you can put your questions through Swapcard. You can also network through Swapcard. It's a pretty nifty app to work with. And hashtag EU Open Data Days if you hear something great from our talks to cast wider on the social networks. Let me pass this to Ahmad Barclay, who is Census Data Visualization. Hang on a second. You are an architect and UX designer engaged in processes involving data visualization. You're at the Office for National Statistics at the United Kingdom. And I'm very interested in this concept of scrolly telling. Go ahead, Ahmad. Can you turn your mic on? Yep. Are you able to turn your mic on?
I think I'm on now.
I think I'm hearing you.
Apologies for that.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, so I'm here to give. It's almost we're day one, the open data theme, but also there's a very heavy kind of visualization component to what I'll be presenting. So basically, I'm working with the Office for National Statistics in the UK. This year, we had the 10-year census of England and Wales. Slight more complexity with the kind of the nations in the UK, that it kind of it doesn't all sync up. In fact, Northern Ireland had their census this year as well, but not Scotland due to the pandemic. So it's a very interesting situation we find ourselves in. So what I'll be talking about relates to the England and Wales. And basically, the census is this kind of huge once in 10-year data set, which has huge kind of possibilities for kind of understanding the country and the people within it. But unfortunately, with these kind of huge data sets, it's not really comprehensible to the wider public, to the vast majority of people. So basically, within the ONS, we also kind of have teams to actually communicate data. And just to kind of underline, it was estimated that roughly 80% of working age adults in the UK have a low levels of numeracy. I'm not exactly sure of the kind of metric that was used. This was from a numeracy charity. So, a large majority of people, wouldn't necessarily be able to comprehend charts, definitely not tables. And it's this kind of challenge that we have of kind of bridging that gap. When we're making a promise to people when they fill in their census that it's about them, that we should be able to kind of bring that back to them, that the large majority of the population should be able to engage with the data at the end of the day. So if we look at, we're trying to reach a very broad set of audiences at the ONS. And these reach from these kind of technical users, expert analysts, policy influencers, all the way down to inquiring citizens and, even passive citizens who wouldn't necessarily find themselves directly on our website, and that we're trying to reach them indirectly through things like, the mainstream media. And very much like, there's kind of two different levels of communication that we would talk about. One is, give me the data, let me explore. So people who really want to have the raw data and interrogate it for themselves. And then there's this overlapping group of people, and very much towards this right end of the spectrum, people who just want to, I want to understand what's in the data. And really, this is the space that we're operating in the digital content team. And this very much, this is driven very much from the top, this idea of communicating, to this kind of wider audience, this idea of statistics for the public good, which is the 5-year plan for the UK Statistics Authority, which is the ONS and a number of other statistical organisations in the UK. So our goal in the Census digital content in the ONS digital content team is to make census data open, accessible, and useful and engaging for real people. Real people obviously being very general, but in this case, talking towards those inquiring citizens and passive citizens that I spoke about before. This was our basically the census focused digital part of the digital content team. So we have a division that's digital content. There's about 2 of us about a year ago that were focused on this census-based work, kind of planning ahead of time, and now we're a team of around 10 people that are working towards releases through the middle of next year onwards. Obviously, we're part of a much larger organization, but there's we have a kind of digital content division within that, which is data viz, data journalism, content design. And just to talk about what we mean when we say, this possibility of this 10-year data, very small area data, 100 households, 300 people, very small population groups as well, which you can think of cross-sectionally with that spatial data. And basically, we're looking on in a number of different ways about building tools as kind of entry points into this data. So that's exploratory tools, guided experiences, robo-journalism, kind of semi-structured articles that are data-driven, and even into the space of kind of games and quizzes. And I'll go through some of those formats now. So exploratory tools, we're looking at ways to map small area data. So these are some of the smallest statistical areas. And this idea that you can see patterns at a neighborhood level of potentially, every indicator available at that geography. These are all based on working prototypes, which you can kind of discover by probably the best way would be to kind of try and find me on Twitter. And I share a lot of links to these things, and we have GitHub pages. So if you're interested in the code, they're also there. And these are all kinds of works in progress. So there's also the idea of creating profiles for all kinds of different areas. So from a very high level down to a very small level, looking at how things have changed since the previous census, and looking at a number of indicators sort of for a single area. So from spatial patterns in the last one to single areas and a lot of different variables. Also, one thing we're being able to do for this census that we weren't able to do before is to cut data in different ways based on population groups. So you'd be able to choose things like sex or gender, ethnicity, age, religion, and things like this, and to be able to see profiles for different population groups relative to the population as a whole. The possibility also, there was supposed to be an animation here, but to actually be able to draw bespoke, or how would you describe them, kind of custom geographic areas using the smallest geographies to build up custom areas that might represent non-standard geographies. So maybe an urban neighborhood or something like this, and to be able to get data for those areas as well. And also, very importantly, that all of these products we see as kind of onward journeys to actually getting the raw data. So all of these products, in theory, would have routes to to kind of get a screenshot of a map, to be able to embed things, but also to be able to download the raw data. So you'd have a journey into discovering the data. So the second area we're looking at is guided experiences, particularly scrolly telling. So this would be basically linear narratives that lead you through quite potentially complex charts and maps to kind of explain particular topics. So this is where there's a number of insights that we want to kind of communicate in this way. So one is kind of map based, where the kind of map would respond to the captions. Another is chart based, where you might have a very complex chart or chart with some level of complexity that we can bring people through using a series of linked captions, and that thinking towards this idea that these experiences are kind of standalone and could be placed also in public spaces or somewhere where it's really about thinking about this kind of audience. What is this as a disembodied experience? What is it like kind of each article should kind of be a complete narrative in itself, that you don't need to kind of have too much background in order to kind of pick up and read. So semi-automated output. So what I was talking about, the robo-journalism here, and this is really about generating localized or even personalized stories, insights, charts, using data-driven templates. So this is where you kind of bring in a certain level of logic and templating to be able to. So in this example was about local authority districts, of which there are about 350 in England and Wales. And here the idea is that you can look at a number of indicators and rank those indicators compared to other areas. So an interesting one here is the changes. So sometimes you'll see population rises in pretty much every area of the country over 10 years. But what's relevant is how much it's risen compared to other areas. So this was very much about, this was an experimentation we did about trying to rank different factors, and then to go a step further in building articles out of that. So in this particular example of Gateshead, this is between 2001 and 2011 censuses, the previous ones. There was a significant rise in home ownership actually compared to other areas. It was from quite a low base, but in that area there was an unusual rise in home ownership, which was decreasing in other places. So here you'd pull out a headline like that, as well as giving a general overview of some of the data, census data for the area. I realize I'm moving towards the end of the period, so I'm quite close. I think I have a couple slides left. So the this was trying to giving an example of where we've kind of brought those things together. So this was an article we actually released on a non-census topic as a kind of test for some of the things we've been doing. So it was a scrolly telling article that had this kind of localization, robo-journalism component to it. So it was looking at income inequality at kind of small area geographies. And then finally, games and quizzes. So looking at this kind of audience that doesn't necessarily normally reach our website, and thinking about ways that we can have kind of educational kind of games that could be quite shareable across things like social media. So where people aren't necessarily landing on our website, they might find and discover these interactives that they can share with other people. And we're hoping that that's a way to kind of increase awareness around census and census data. And I believe that is my final slide. Thank you.
That's great, Ahmad. Thank you so much. I guess good to remind the viewers that they can get more information from you on your Twitter links, right? There are Twitter links that you send out. What is your Twitter handle?
It's bothness. I don't know if I can. I can probably post that to everyone in the session.
Yeah, why don't you do that? That would be great.
Yeah, okay.
And for everyone else, whatever you heard during this session, this thematic session 2, something interesting, please cast it out on hashtag EU Open Data Days. There's also more swap card networking, and I think we're coming right up pretty soon to the top. I think one quick question to you, Ahmad, is how do you decide what to visualize, or who decides what to visualize among all that myriad data?
Yeah, no, I mean, I mentioned that we're part of a very large organization. So there are, I mean, there's a couple of different levels to it. One is in terms of what analysis and what are the kind of pertinent things that the census is telling us. So there are analytical, topic-based analytical teams around think 8 of them, plus some kind of other specialist analytical teams that will be looking at basically what the data is telling us in areas like housing, I think ethnicity, identity, language, religion, like kind of economic activity, work. So a lot of the content will be driven by that analysis. And on another level, we've been doing a lot of research kind of over the time with through user researchers, also through other kind of outreach we've been doing to try to understand kind of which of them are the things people are wanting to discover in terms of exploration tools, things like that. I think we're
with you. Can you hear me?
I think we've lost you, Chris. Yeah. I mean, I can continue. I think I can probably wrap up on that question almost. Yeah. So essentially,
with back with letter section 1 for a talk by Nuria Oliver on science in the fight against COVID-19 experience. As Chris, I'll be with you tomorrow on visualization, and I look forward to seeing you then. So, and see you tomorrow.
okay, I think it's going to be difficult to answer further questions. So, what was I going to say? So, in terms of these things, as Chris noted, that that you can find a lot of this stuff. I think the best way to find me and the kind of live demos of some of the things we're working on for next year would probably be via my Twitter. I was going to say, yeah. So.
Thanks very much. We have to, yeah.
Yeah. Should I wrap up then? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Then, yeah, it was a pleasure to present, and hopefully we'll find ways to connect through the rest of the conference. Enjoy the rest of the rest of the sessions today, tomorrow, and Thursday.